Don't lose faith while you're in the process, because the process is the part nobody claps for. Everybody loves the outcome. Everybody celebrates the win. But very few people talk about the nights you cry in private, the mornings you wake up tired, and the days when it feels like nothing is moving. Let me tell you something straight from the heart. Just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. Just because you're uncomfortable doesn't mean you're off track. Sometimes discomfort is proof that growth is happening. God never promised the process would be easy, but he did promise it would be worth it if you stayed faithful. See, most people quit not because they can't make it, but because they lose faith while they're waiting. They pray, but they don't want to wait. They believe, but only when things are going well. Faith isn't real faith when everything makes sense. Faith is when you keep walking even when you don't understand the road. It's when you keep showing up even when results are invisible. You've got to learn how to trust what God showed you in the light, even when you're walking through the dark. If God gave you the vision, he already accounted for the delay. Let me be real with you. Being in the process will test everything about you. It'll test your patience, your confidence, your relationships, and even your belief in yourself. People will doubt you, and sometimes the loudest doubt will come from inside your own head. You'll start asking questions like, am I good enough? Did I hear God right? Why is it taking so long? But delay is not denial. Preparation often feels like punishment when you don't understand what it's building in you. God is shaping your character before he hands you the blessing, because what's coming requires a stronger version of you. While you're in the process, you've got to learn how to keep your faith alive without applause. Nobody is cheering right now. Nobody is reposting your struggle. Nobody sees the sacrifice, but heaven sees it. Every tear, every prayer, every step taken when you felt like giving up is being recorded. You're not behind, you're being trained. The process is teaching you discipline, humility, resilience, and gratitude. These are the qualities that keep blessings, not just attract them. Here's the part people don't like to hear. If you're faithful in the process, God will be faithful in the promise. But if you quit early, you'll never know how close you were. Some of you are one decision away, one season away, one breakthrough away, but you're tired. I get it. Being tired doesn't mean stop. Being tired means rest, regroup, and then keep going. Don't let temporary frustration make you abandon a permanent calling. What God has for you is bigger than what you're going through right now. The process is proof that God is working, even when it feels like nothing is happening. And that's the part most people misunderstand. If God wasn't involved, you wouldn't be going through this stretch of uncertainty, pressure, and growth. The very fact that you're still in the process means your life is under construction, not demolition. Think about it. Nobody renovates a house without making a mess first. Walls come down, dust fills the air, and for a moment it looks worse than it did before. But the mess isn't a sign of destruction. It's a sign of improvement in progress. Right now, your life might look messy, confusing, and unfinished, but that's because God is rebuilding something stronger than what you had before. Here's a truth that might hit you hard. If you were meant to quit, the struggle would have already taken you out. The pressure you feel isn't designed to break you. It's designed to reveal what's inside you. God doesn't waste pain. Every challenge you're facing is developing a skill, a mindset, or a level of discipline you didn't have before. You're being stretched because what's coming requires more capacity than your old version could handle. The process is uncomfortable because comfort never created greatness. Growth lives in places where excuses die and faith has to stand on its own. A lot of people think God only works when doors open. But some of his best work happens when doors stay closed. Closed doors teach patience. Closed doors teach humility. Closed doors teach you how to trust God without needing instant results. When nothing seems to be moving, God is usually working on you, not the situation. He's strengthening your character, sharpening your focus, and removing habits that would destroy the blessing once it arrives. You might be asking for success, but God is building stability first, because success without stability leads to collapse. Let me tell you something powerful. If God showed you the vision, he already knew about the struggle that would come with it. He didn't miscalculate your ability. He didn't overestimate your strength. He chose you because he knows you can survive the process. The fact that you're still standing, still trying, still believing on some level is proof that God's hand is on your life. You didn't come this far on your own. There were moments you should have given up, moments you should have lost your mind, moments you didn't even know how you made it through. But grace carried you when your strength ran out. The process also exposes who you really are. When nobody is watching, when applause disappears, when support fades, that's when faith becomes real. Anybody can praise God when life is good, but it takes maturity to trust Him when everything feels delayed. This season is teaching you how to walk by faith and not by sight. It's teaching you consistency without motivation and discipline without reward. These are the traits that separate temporary success from lasting purpose. And here's the hook you need to hear right now. What you're going through isn't trying to stop you. It's trying to shape you. The resistance is confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. The enemy doesn't fight what isn't valuable. The pressure means there's something special on your life. God is preparing you for rooms you haven't entered yet, conversations you haven't had yet, and responsibilities you're not ready for yet. The process is not punishment, it's preparation with intention. So when the days feel long and progress feels slow, remind yourself that the process is evidence of divine involvement. God is working behind the scenes, aligning timing, strengthening your foundation, and building a version of you that can handle the blessing without losing humility. Stay in the process. Because the work being done inside you right now is more important than the results you're waiting to see. Delay is preparation, not rejection. And this is where most people misread the signs and walk away too early. When things don't happen on your timeline, the first thought that creeps in is that you've been forgotten, overlooked, or denied. But let me tell you something that might shift your perspective right now. If God was rejecting you, He wouldn't still be working on you. Silence does not mean absence, and waiting does not mean failure. Sometimes the delay is proof that what you're asking for is big, and God refuses to give it to a version of you that isn't ready to sustain it. Think about how often we pray for the destination, but underestimate the preparation. We want the success, the breakthrough, the recognition, but we don't always want the discipline, the patience, or the growth that comes before it. Delay is God's way of protecting you from receiving something too soon. A blessing delivered early can destroy you just as quickly as a blessing never delivered at all. God's timing is not about punishment, it's about precision. He's aligning the right mindset, the right people, and the right season so that when it happens, it lasts. Here's the hook most people need to hear. What feels like a setback is often a setup happening quietly. While you're counting the days, God is counting the details. He's closing doors that would have led you into unnecessary pain. He's removing people who would have drained you. He's building emotional strength so you don't fold under pressure when things finally take off. You think you're being slowed down, but in reality, you're being positioned. The delay is not about what you're missing. It's about what you're becoming. Let's be honest. Waiting exposes impatience, fear, and insecurity. It forces you to face yourself. When there's no movement, no validation, and no clear sign, you find out what you really believe. This is where faith matures. Anyone can trust God when progress is obvious, but real faith develops when you keep going without evidence. The delay is teaching you how to depend on God instead of outcomes. It's strengthening your ability to move forward, even when you don't have all the answers. Another reason delay exists is because some things require layers of preparation you can't see. You may be ready for the blessing, but the environment isn't. The opportunity might be close, but timing isn't aligned. God sees the whole picture, while you only see one frame. He's arranging moments, conversations, and circumstances that have to happen in order. If one piece is missing, the whole thing falls apart. That's why rushing God's process often leads to regret. What comes early often leaves early. Here's something powerful. Delay builds appreciation. When you wait for something, you value it differently. You protect it. You don't play with it. God allows the wait so you don't take the blessing lightly. He's teaching you gratitude before giving you increase. He's teaching you humility before elevation. He's teaching you responsibility before influence. The delay is training your mindset so that when the door opens, you walk through it prepared instead of panicked, and understand this clearly. Rejection pushes you away, but preparation pulls you closer. If you're still being stretched, challenged, and refined, you haven't been rejected. You're still in training. God is using the delay to upgrade your character, your faith, and your endurance. What's coming requires more than talent. It requires maturity. Stay patient. Stay faithful. The delay is not a dead end. It's a divine pause with purpose. Faith must exist without results. And this is where most people discover whether they truly believe or whether they were only hopeful when life was convenient. It's easy to say you have faith when doors are opening, when progress is visible, and when people are cheering you on. The real test comes when nothing is changing, when prayers feel unanswered, and when effort doesn't seem to produce immediate reward. This is the season where faith either deepens or disappears. Faith was never meant to be dependent on evidence. It was designed to operate in uncertainty. Here's the hook that shifts everything. If you need proof to believe, you don't have faith, you have conditions. Faith is choosing to trust even when logic says stop. It's showing up when motivation is gone. It's continuing to prepare for a future you can't yet see. God doesn't respond to comfort-based belief. He responds to conviction-based obedience. When you keep moving without results, you're demonstrating a level of trust that activates growth within you long before change happens around you. Living without visible results forces you to confront your internal dialogue. This is when doubt gets loud and fear starts negotiating. You begin asking yourself if you're wasting time, if you misunderstood your calling, or if you should lower your expectations. But faith doesn't shrink the vision just because the journey is slow. Faith holds on to what God promised, even when reality seems to contradict it. This is the stage where many people walk away, not because the vision was wrong, but because the weight was uncomfortable. Operating without results also builds discipline, and discipline is more powerful than motivation. Motivation fades, especially when there's no feedback, but discipline keeps you consistent. Faith teaches you to act based on purpose rather than feelings. You learn how to work when you're tired, how to believe when you're uncertain, and how to stay committed when quitting seems reasonable. These habits are forged in invisible seasons, and they become the foundation for visible success later. Another truth people struggle with is that God often withholds results to strengthen relationship. If you only trust Him when He delivers, then your faith is transactional. But when you trust Him, even when nothing changes, your faith becomes relational. You begin to rely on who God is, not just what He does. This shift is crucial because blessings without trust create dependence on outcomes, not on God. Faith without results teaches you how to walk with God, not just wait on Him. Here's something powerful. Results come and go, but faith builds endurance. The person who learns how to believe without seeing becomes unshakable when success arrives. They don't panic under pressure or crumble when obstacles appear because they've already learned how to survive seasons with nothing. They know how to stand alone. They know how to trust the process. They know how to keep moving without applause. That level of inner strength can't be taught. It has to be lived. The silence you're experiencing is not God ignoring you. It's God training you. He's developing your spiritual muscles, teaching you how to stand firm when circumstances don't cooperate. Faith without results is the gym where endurance is built. Every time you choose belief over doubt, obedience over fear, and patience over frustration, your faith grows stronger. And when results finally appear, they won't define you. You'll already be defined by the faith that carried you there. The process separates the committed from the curious, and this truth shows up the moment things stop being comfortable. When the excitement fades, when progress slows down, and when the work starts demanding more than enthusiasm, that's when the difference becomes clear. Curious people are interested as long as it feels good. Committed people stay when it gets heavy. The process doesn't ask how talented you are, it asks how serious you are. And seriousness is revealed by consistency, not intention. Here's the hook you need to hear. Every dream has a price, and the process is the receipt. Everybody wants the promise, but very few people are willing to pay what it costs to grow into it. The long nights, the quiet sacrifices, the discipline nobody sees. This is where the crowd gets smaller. The process is designed to thin the room, not because others aren't capable, but because they aren't willing. Comfort creates spectators. Pressure reveals warriors. When things start to hurt, excuses suddenly sound reasonable. You begin telling yourself you'll come back later, that the timing isn't right, that maybe this wasn't meant for you. But the truth is, resistance doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. Resistance is proof that you've stepped onto a path that requires strength. The process exposes commitment because commitment doesn't ask for permission to keep going. It just goes. Curious people need reassurance. Committed people need purpose. The process also demands sacrifice, and sacrifice is where curiosity ends. You can't hold on to old habits, old mindsets, and old relationships and expect new results. The process asks you to let go of comfort so you can grab hold of growth. This is where people walk away quietly, not because the dream changed, but because the cost became personal. Commitment costs time, energy, pride, and sometimes approval. The process doesn't negotiate with excuses. It responds to obedience. Another hook that hits deep. The process doesn't test your ability. It tests your appetite. How bad do you want it when nobody is watching? How consistent are you when motivation disappears? Curiosity shows up when it's convenient. Commitment shows up when it's costly. The process forces you to choose between short-term relief and long-term reward. And most people choose relief because pain feels permanent when you don't understand its purpose. Staying in the process also means enduring isolation. As commitment grows, companionship often shrinks. People won't understand why you're still pushing, still believing, still working when results aren't obvious. That's because the process speaks a language only committed people understand. It teaches you how to stand alone without feeling abandoned. It builds internal validation, so you're not dependent on external approval. Curiosity needs applause. Commitment survives on conviction. The process separates the committed from the curious by demanding responsibility. At some point, you stop blaming circumstances and start adjusting yourself. You stop waiting for perfect conditions and start becoming the kind of person who can succeed in imperfect ones. Commitment doesn't ask who's helping, it asks what needs to be done. The process teaches you ownership, and ownership is the gateway to leadership. You can't lead what you're not willing to carry. And understand this, everyone starts with curiosity, but only a few graduate into commitment. The process is the exam you didn't know you signed up for. It measures patience, resilience, humility, and discipline. It doesn't rush. It doesn't explain itself. It simply waits to see who stays. If you're still here, still pushing, still believing, that's not accidental. That's commitment being forged under pressure, and pressure always reveals who's real. Your current struggle is building your testimony, even though right now it feels more like a burden than a blessing. Most people don't realize that the hardest chapters of their lives are not meant to break them, but to give their story weight. Anybody can talk about success, but only those who've endured pain can speak with authority. The pressure you're under today is shaping a voice, a perspective, and a strength that can only come from experience. What you're surviving right now is becoming the evidence of what God can bring you through. Here's the hook that changes how you see your struggle. Your pain has a purpose bigger than your comfort. If everything went smoothly, your story wouldn't have impact. The nights you felt alone, the seasons you questioned yourself, the moments you almost quit but didn't, those are the parts that give your testimony power. People don't connect to perfection, they connect to perseverance. One day, someone is going to listen to your story and realize they can survive too, simply because you didn't give up when it hurt. The struggle also teaches you lessons success never could. It humbles you. It slows you down. It forces you to listen instead of rushing ahead. When life strips away your confidence, your resources, and sometimes even your support system, you learn what really holds you up. You discover whether your faith is rooted or borrowed. This season is teaching you how to lean on God instead of your own understanding. And that kind of dependency becomes the foundation of a testimony that's real, not rehearsed. Another truth people overlook is that struggle gives you compassion. Without it, you might achieve things, but lack empathy. God allows you to experience difficulty so you can later lead with understanding. Your testimony won't just inspire people, it will heal them. You'll know how to speak to brokenness because you've been there. You'll know how to encourage patience because you've waited. You'll know how to speak life into discouragement because you survived it. That depth can't be learned. It has to be lived. Here's another hook. What you're enduring privately will be celebrated publicly later. But before that happens, you have to pass the season where nobody claps for your survival. This is where testimonies are formed in silence. No audience, no recognition, just endurance. God is watching how you handle pain without applause, because that determines how you'll handle success with attention. If you stay faithful in the struggle, your story will speak louder than any achievement. The struggle is also refining your character, so your testimony carries credibility. People can tell when someone speaks from theory versus experience. When you talk about patience, peace, faith, or resilience later, it won't sound motivational, it will sound authentic. Your words will carry weight because they were earned. God is careful about who He gives influence to, because influence without integrity damages others. This season is protecting future lives by strengthening yours first. And understand this clearly, your testimony is not just about what you went through, but how you went through it. Did you stay kind when you were hurt? Did you stay faithful when you were disappointed? Did you keep going when it didn't make sense? Those choices are shaping a story that will outlive the struggle itself. You're not just surviving a season. You're collecting wisdom that will guide others later. The struggle may feel unnecessary right now, but it's positioning you for purpose. God is turning wounds into wisdom and pain into perspective. What feels heavy today will become the proof tomorrow that God can take broken moments and turn them into something meaningful. Every step you take through this season is adding another line to a testimony that will one day remind people that survival is possible, faith is powerful, and quitting is never the answer. Quitting early cancels future rewards, and this is the silent tragedy behind so many unfinished lives. Most people don't fail because they lack talent, opportunity, or potential. They fail because they stop too soon. They walk away in the middle of the process, right before growth turns into harvest. The hard truth is this: quitting feels like relief in the moment, but it becomes regret over time. Temporary comfort can cost you permanent purpose. The distance between where you are and where you're meant to be is often shorter than it feels, but only if you keep going. Here's the hook you need to hear clearly. Giving up doesn't end the pain. It delays the promise. When you quit, you don't erase the calling, you just postpone it. What God has for you doesn't disappear, but access to it requires endurance. Many people assume that stopping will bring peace, but peace doesn't come from quitting your assignment. Peace comes from knowing you finished what you were trusted with. Quitting early doesn't remove the pressure. It replaces it with questions, doubt, and the haunting thought of what if. The process is designed to stretch you right to the edge of your patience, because growth happens at the point where comfort ends. That's why quitting always feels justified. You're tired, you're discouraged, you're frustrated. But being tired is not a signal to stop. It's a signal to strengthen your discipline. God never promised ease, but he did promise reward for those who endure. The greatest breakthroughs often come after the longest resistance. Walking away early means you never get to see what was waiting, just beyond the struggle. Another powerful hook. Many people quit in the season that was meant to introduce them to their next level. Right before clarity, confusion increases. Right before momentum, resistance intensifies. Right before reward, pressure peaks. This is not coincidence, it's design. The process tests whether you're committed to the promise or just attracted to the idea of it. Quitting disqualifies you, not because you weren't chosen, but because you chose comfort over completion. Quitting early also interrupts momentum that was quietly building. Progress is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. Roots grow underground long before fruit appears above ground. When you quit because you don't see results, you cancel growth that was already in motion. Faith requires trust beyond visibility. You may not feel stronger, wiser, or closer, but something is changing beneath the surface. Walking away stops what consistency was about to complete. There's also a character cost to quitting. Every time you quit, it trains your mind to escape discomfort instead of mastering it. Over time, quitting becomes a habit, not a decision. God is more concerned with who you're becoming than what you're achieving. Endurance builds confidence, discipline, and resilience, qualities that success demands. If you quit now, you may avoid pain, but you also avoid becoming the person who can handle what you prayed for. Here's another hook that hits deep. Quitting early teaches others how to treat your calling. When you stop believing in what you were assigned, it sends a message that pressure is greater than purpose. But when you stay, even when it's hard, your persistence speaks louder than your words. You never know who's watching your consistency for permission to keep going in their own life. Your endurance might be the evidence someone else needs to stay faithful. Quitting early doesn't just cancel rewards, it cancels lessons. Some wisdom only comes from staying through the storm. Some strength only comes from surviving the wait. If you leave too soon, you'll meet the same test again in a different form. God doesn't remove lessons. You either learn them now or repeat them later. Staying saves time in the long run, even when it feels slow in the moment. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. Finish what you started. Not because it's easy, not because it feels good, but because obedience unlocks what effort alone cannot. Persistence keeps doors open that talent can't. When you refuse to quit, you align yourself with the reward reserved for those who endure. What's waiting on the other side of your consistency is bigger than what you're trying to escape right now. So if you're in the process and it feels lonely, confusing, or slow, hold on. Keep believing, keep praying, keep working, keep trusting. The same God who started this journey with you is going to finish it. One day, the very process you wanted to escape will become the testimony that inspires someone else to keep going. Don't lose faith while you're in the process, because the process is proof that God isn't done with you yet.